So we're going to talk tonight, of course, about growing earlier, longer, and better. And we're also going to talk about why you might want to do that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit at the beginning about what's going on with our food banks. This growing earlier, longer, and better will definitely help you no matter what you're doing. But anybody here, I hope, if you think it's appropriate, if you want to, go ahead and share the information about the food banks and what's going on with them so that we can find as many solutions for them as possible. So we're going to grow more crops in your garden, and we're going to talk about tight successions, for example, just because it's fun and you get to start new crops before you even have room in your garden. So you always have these layers of growing going on of babies, seeds and babies, and I'll show you how that works. And then you can learn to grow new crops if you can fit more in to your garden. Then you don't have to say, oh, I have to choose between ever having lettuce and trying this new thing that I want to try. It also gives you time to eat all winter from your garden because, well, I'll show you why. And also because Helpline needs your produce. So we segue into the Helpline situation. First, I guess I put this in because this is winter produce that you can get out of your garden. You can have this sitting in your garden all winter. So even if you don't do the succession planting that I'm talking about, you might want to grow for the food bank, perfect storm. Individual food assistance has been cut. So that includes women, infant, and children nutrition and supplemental nutrition, SNAP, that's called, nutritional support for seniors, and all kinds of stuff. So food banks were already very stressed, I guess. But then here comes this wave of people who've had some disruptions. And then the food banks say, okay, we're going to need to find more food for these people. But they've had 40% cut from their federal commodities. So you might think, oh, that's just commodities. That must be bags of dried beans. But it's not. It is potatoes and carrots and onions, but it's also fruit, vegetables, dairy, and meat. So here come these people that they really want to serve, and there are big cuts. They also lost funds that go through, I guess, the feds to the county ag department and then out to the food banks so they can buy for local farmers. That affects the food banks. That affects also the local farmers. People tend to assume that Helpline is rich because Bainbridge is so well off, but Helpline actually has many fewer grocery stores on the island than stores in other places do. That another food bank, although they're really hating too, they're hurting. Everybody's hurting. I just want to say we shouldn't assume that Helpline's better off. But some grocery stores have maybe food banks have maybe 5 grocery stores around, and 2 of them might be super giant grocery stores like a super center or a Sam's or something. So Helpline actually is under strain, but this is not limited. If you're not living on Bainbridge, I use Helpline as an example a lot because I'm from Bainbridge Prepares and I'm working with Helpline through this, but please, wherever you have a food bank, this is important. And there are lots of families and children and elders. That's an odd way of putting it on the slide, but I think sometimes people say, oh, it's only people who are actually, just only on the street. And people who are unhoused definitely deserve food. But there's a wide range of people who are coming to the food bank. So there are 4 ways to grow if you choose to. And 3 of them are unusual, probably not what you think. And they also do not require you to have a garden or more garden space. So one is to grow in your own garden. So people often take their excess, but some people set aside or plant extra specifically so they can take it to Helpline or a food bank. And some people this year are doubling what they have usually grown. So even though they already grow a row, now they're trying to do 2 rows. So if you ever think to yourself, well, I do end up having some extra space, or I would like to put in extra space, that's a great way to a great motivator. But you don't have to have space. You can participate at Peaceful Morning Farm. This is the farm when it's full of food, but it doesn't look like that unless there are people willing to plant that food and start seeds in cells in the greenhouse and put those seeds in those starts into the ground and harvest and all kinds of things. So people think of helping on a farm, they think of harvesting in September, but it's necessary now in order to make that look that way. Peaceful Morning is exclusively for the food bank. So it goes to other places in Kitsap County or here on Bainbridge. In recent years, Bainbridge has needed it enough that all of it has been going to Bainbridge. We're going to do a tour on May 17th at 10 and a work party at 11. And you can stay as short as you like. You don't have to do the work party. You could do the work party for 15 minutes. You could do the work party for 9 hours if you want. So there is a link in the chat, and you can also just sign up for reminders and I'll send that out to you. And you can also get it from the resource page. Does anybody have a question about Peaceful Morning or Grow a Row? No? Holler if you do. And John, you're checking the chat?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We also have something called Growing Connections. So I have already linked up somebody who is redoing her garden space specifically so that another gardener who is not her will be able to garden in it more efficiently. And that other gardener is going to grow for Helpline. So she is too busy to use the space. And initially she was, I think, just saying, well, I think I should let someone garden in that. And then I said it would be great for Helpline. And then she got inspired. And as part of her landscape redo, maybe they were all going to do it anyway, but they are improving it and then having another gardener grow in that space. And that will go to Helpline. So if you have any space, it doesn't have to be improved. It's just as it is would be great. Whatever your garden beds are, if you want to volunteer, there's a link for Growing Connections in the chat. And you can say what you have or what you're willing to do. Like, I live on the south end and I'd like to grow in somebody else's garden. And we'll make an effort to put you together. I can't totally guarantee it, but so far we've had some success. You can also help at Rock Farm. This is a pea patch, but it grows tons of food for Helpline. And by tons, I mean every year it sends a ton or a bit more to Helpline of food. So that's a lot of food. But for all of these gardens and the farm and all of that, the limiting factor is people to get together and help it go faster, help make sure that the plants get in and that things get watered and things like that. Oh, I can also say that both of the farms are quite flexible. You can, especially on John Chang's Peaceful Morning Farm, if you can't spend a lot of time bending over, then you are the person who can water, or, he turns on and off irrigation. But at Rock Farm, she needs help watering if you can't spend time like crouched over and weeding. You can also be flexible about timing. It's not like you have to do the Tuesday at 3 session or everybody's going to be mad at you. It's not like that at all. And in John Chang's case, he even has people who say, just call and say, I can work out something on Friday. What do you want me to do? And he's not even at the farm. He just says, we'll need strawberries picked. So do those. So it's really flexible and accommodating for you. So how do you go about growing for Helpline? How do you grow for Helpline already? Does anybody already grow for Helpline? Crickets? I do. Okay. Well, worth a thought. Oh, there are lots of comments in the chat, right, John?
Yeah, I see a few. Hang on.
Okay. You know what, if you do grow for Helpline, you can just tell us how you do it if you want. You don't have to put it in the chat.
Claire said she just met with Anita to help grow.
Oh,
And
that's terrific. That's Marcy?
Claire.
Oh, Claire. Yay, Claire. Thank you.
This is Kim Smith. I'm also helping at Rock Farm.
Oh,
First
that's
first
terrific.
time veg grower. So
Oh, that's great. Oh, yeah. You know what that brings up? You do not have to be very good at it yet, right? You're
no,
gonna be. Yeah.
yeah, you
That's
get
really
lots of
great.
help, which is awesome.
Yes, that's just wonderful. That's truly great. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for doing that. It's really heartening. Oh, and you know what? Um, this is a great opportunity, no matter what your politics are, if you think this is a travesty or if you think it's part of the way the system needs to shake out. One thing that we can agree on is it's direct action. You're putting your efforts and energy and resources where you think they should go. You know, if you decide to do this, instead of somebody saying, guess what, you're going to pay for this. Um, you are able to take care and build community, you know, and be locally responsible. So that appeals to a lot of people. I have friends and acquaintances with lots of different perspectives, but they can all see the value of taking action here if you can. So what do they want you to grow? The stuff that's in the grocery stores, which, you know, I wish that I could, you know, give them exotic varieties, but there's a reason they're popular in the grocery stores. So I thought this means don't grow oca or, you know, goji berries or something, but it's even like lemon cucumbers. Those lemon cucumbers don't sell as well as just slicing cucumbers, like, you know, a slicer or an English cucumber goes is chosen more frequently by the clients of the food banks than lemon cucumbers. And like green beans versus Romano beans. Romanos are starchy flat ones, which I really like. But that kind of surprised me that um, that it's very not only very mainstream, but you know, if it's a lemon cucumber and your kids only eat the slicers, then you're going to choose the slicers. They don't get enough peas. And if you're thinking, oh, I'm not going to have enough peas to share, it is possible to grow peas for fall. You plant them in August in the coolest morning sun, afternoon shade that you have. And I will either direct you to a recording from a previous year or do a session on growing food for fall and winter. So you can't, it's not too late for peas. It's too late for peas maybe right now. Um, but later you can grow a fall crop so it cools off a little bit. They never get enough sweet peppers. You'd have to buy starts if you were going to put in extra sweet peppers or tomatoes. Now it's too late to grow from seed. And they don't get enough garlic. So if you find that the tomato bomb goes off at your house, or you realize that your garlic, it always sprouts, you know, I always have too much. Why don't you share some soon? That could be great. Also, they want commodity crops. Totally surprising. I thought onions and potatoes would be cheap, but she said, this is Leanne Risto, the manager of Helpline, says, we do want those commodity crops and we never get enough corn and we love delicata squash and carrots. She mentioned the onions and potatoes that they do get have often been stored for a really long time and are, I don't know if they're less than ideal to start with, but they're bad, she says. So I'm picturing shriveled and sprouted and moldy. So not universally, but she ends up having to spend money to buy bags of onions and potatoes and carrots. If we have them, that could be an easy thing to grow. Like potatoes are, once you get them hilled up, you know, once you get them going, all you have to do is irrigate them and they just do their thing. It's not like green beans where you have to pick them all the time. So if you have a spot where you think, gosh, I have the time to plant there, but I don't have the time to pick all the time, maybe some commodity is good for you or one of these. There's an auto commodity. And these are things they never get, but she thought they might like. So, Robin, maybe you're edamame. I don't suppose you have a giant crop of it. It's not an entire field, but maybe you'll be the new edamame queen for Helpline in future years. I know I put extra celery in. Celery is a really slow growing crop, so if you don't already have it in, I wouldn't do that one. But yeah, she was curious about these, so we'll give it a try. And herbs and flowers. Do you have chives right now or garlic chives that are just going nuts and kind of taking over? And you know, in a little while, they're going to start to grow brown on the tips. And then you're going to go, that's looking peaky and ugly. I'm going to chop them off and fertilize it to get them to grow back. Well, you could chop them off a little bit early and take them to the food bank. I think it's nice to put those things in because there is sometimes not a lot of leeway in food bank food. So it's nice to put those kind of fugues in there, those little niceties. They
Shelling
don't need
peas or
more
snap
coverage.
peas, Carol?
She said, so I think snap peas because I think they're the best. I didn't ask her if it was shelling peas. It seems to me, if I were growing peas, though, would you agree on this? I would want to provide the delicious podded snap pea because otherwise you lose part of the food as you string it out. I mean, as you shell them. Does that make sense?
It does, but I'm a huge
I'm gonna,
shelled peas fan.
oh, well, then do that. Definitely do that. People will love it. And the lettuce bomb always goes off in early summer because we get really excited and we plant tons of lettuce in the springtime and then it all starts to bolt and we cut it off and give it to the food bank. So um, she does still need lettuce, but maybe don't like put in extra for early summer. And she says clients appreciate and ask about locally grown food. So they care and they really appreciate it. Whoops. And when you do donate, can you please write or have them write? They weigh it and they write it on a clipboard. Could you please make sure they weigh it and record it? They might say, do you want to tell me your name? And you can say, my name is Claire, but this should also go down as Groper Helpline. And that's a separate line. So that would be great. I dream that we will in the end know how much we've done this year. I really hope we do. I expect we'll miss some of the data, but it'll be nice to have if you can do that. And if you do pass the information on, and you know you're talking with friends or something, you can ask them to make sure that it's written down as Grover Helpline. John McInnes, did you learn anything else about your local bank? John McInnes was here.
Sorry. Yeah. I always have a hard time
I'm
getting
sorry,
over to
John.
the, no problem, getting over to the unmute button. I did not. I didn't get the list of that you got. So I got
Mhm.
just basically anything and everything. So
Yeah.
my situation, I think I emailed you, is I'm adding space in Squim. I was up there yesterday, and I'm taking over a corner of one of the hay fields and going to put in things that work for me because I only go up there once a week or once every 2 weeks. So I don't want something that needs to
Mhm.
be attended to every other day.
For sure.
So,
I think it's
so
wonderful that you responded. Sorry.
yeah. So I'm ending up putting in green cabbage, red cabbage, tomatoes, and this is all above and beyond what I do here. But green cabbage, red
Mm-hmm.
cabbage, tomatoes, green beans, butternut squash, spaghetti squash. I added delicata squash after you've seen your email.
Mm.
Tomatillos, slicing cucumbers, daikon radish, peas, bush peas. And that was my question on the shelling peas or snap peas. I'm glad you said snap peas because they aren't going to get any shelling peas from me shelled.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I mean
then
everything is great.
yeah, and then onions on top of that. So I ended up going out way since they said everything, and I stopped to think like, oh, I can't just do everything if I'm expanding up there because of the distance, right? So I ended up
Well,
working
for sure.
kind of backwards on what works for me. So
Oh, that seems like exactly what we should do. Like, I would hope that nobody would look at this list and think they have to grow all of it, but that they could choose something from it, right? And also
Right.
they're saying, yeah, they're also, the banks are saying everything. Like the first time they were asked, what do you want us to grow? They were at a big meeting and one of the bank managers just said, I need everything. I just need food because people are going to show up. So yeah, so they're glad to have what you have. And also the local farmers have lost uh, market. They've lost the money that would have gone gone to them from the food banks, but also they had purchased project materials, for example, so that they could do capital improvements. Some of them bought extra seed because they were going to get some funding, and that funding isn't gone. So I sometimes I'm at the grocery store and I just go, oh, I need carrots, I need broccoli, and I just grab it because I don't grow all of our food for the whole year like I did for years. So now I'll grab something and I think, I might have waited till Sunday or Saturday and gone to the farmer's market. So I try to do that. Um, yeah, it's good for our farmers. But now we're going to talk about how to grow uh, more in the time that you have for your garden and why you might want to do that. So in February, we did this. We did how to feel like a food growing genius, and we used a local planting calendar, and we gave them the space they need, keep them moist, feed them, and choose adapted varieties. So if you don't have this calendar, there's a calendar in the resources that I really like. It is for Western Washington. Of course, climate change is altering that a little bit. And it also, he says he starts his Brussels sprouts in June. I start my Brussels sprouts at the end of April because I want those to be huge plants. But he has two calendars. One is for the regular season, and he has an entirely separate winter calendar for exactly when to plant so that you can eat all the way through the winter. It's called West Side Gardener. It should be in the resources. But we're going to add on these now. We're going to add on today, overlap your plantings for weeks more growing time. And I bet people do this a little bit, but I'll show you how to do it a little bit more. You can grow your own starts now outdoors. Of course, you always can do it with, if you have lights. But last summer, I had some people say, oh, I didn't know you could grow starts just out in the sun. I thought you had to have lights. But you totally can. And it might be smart to do it. And you can use some protection for plants like eggplants and melons and things like that if you want to make them happier, on cool days or in the early times when they're growing in like April, May, or at the end of the season. So we'll take a look at those. So here we go. Oh, I'm going to save that till later. So first we're going to do planting in successions. I bet you know what these are, but we're going to tighten them up. So we're going to do a thing called tight successions. So this is not 4 garden beds in a garden. This is one bed with 5 rows of food in it, and it's going through the seasons. So we can see that this is early spring chard. Maybe it overwintered and it probably started bolting. So this gardener pulled it out, and as she pulled it out, she put in lettuce starts. When did she have to start those lettuce starts? Probably a month before these guys were pulled out. So if this person has some experience, then they say, you know what, my chard always bolts after it's gone through the winter, gives me some leaves, and then it grows tall and tries to make flowers. I know that happens about sometime in like April. So I'm going to start some lettuce. And so what's the advantage to having these bigger plants? To put in, instead of direct seeding, slugs do not eat a big plant as easily as a small one. So I like to get big lettuce for the spring. Also, this now is going to mature much longer. And you can do this in each different row. They're doing it with a different crop. And not only are they doing it with a different crop in each row, but they're doing it multiple times through the season. This is a bit fantastical, but because my tomatoes will never come out during the summer, as these apparently are. But this is the idea of planting in successions. It takes a little bit of practice because you might not plant early enough, or you might not plant soon enough, or late, you might not be able to wait long enough. But let's take a look. So you can grow them in cells because you'll get fewer plants eaten by pests, obviously. And you can get a couple of weeks extra growing time if you start them, like say it's too cool to put your melons out. You can start them in 4-inch pots, and you can start them 2 weeks before it's warm enough outside, or the soil's warm enough to have those melons go in. You can even start them in pots and put, if you don't mind, clear plastic over your amended soil so it gets warmer. Now, we don't want it boiling hot, but it can help warm it up quite a bit and keep it dry if we have like June is being damp. So you can get a couple of weeks in the case of a plant that grows quickly. In the case of a plant that grows slowly, you might get 8 weeks of extra growing time before you even need space in your garden. So you're growing lettuce, and then that lettuce comes out. You now have a 2 to 8 week old plant to put in there. If you'd grown it by seed, you'd take the lettuce out and sprinkle the seed in, and then you wait and wait and wait for that to come up, and then it gets mowed by slugs maybe, right? So there are appropriate times, and you're perfectly free to grow everything from seed in your garden, but this is an interesting skill to have, and it can be very powerful. So you start to get an eye for things like, I feel like planting this new stuff and I don't have space for it. And you start to scan your landscape for that's bolting. We're going to harvest beets, and I know we're going to have those at the community party. So those are coming out. And so then you learn to be ready with these starts. It's also really fun to just think you want to plant something and then not have to wait for the space. You just can do it. And you can start them, many plants, outdoors in the spring and the summer. Does anybody have any questions, or you want to contradict me and tell me I'm completely wrong? Some people say, well, I plant them next to, like I have lettuce growing and I'll just direct seed next to it. Sometimes that's a really crowded bed for me, and it's going to compete for light and root space and all kinds of things like that. So I can find that I can put more in at the time and then get the starts going elsewhere. So there are 3 ways to do it. One is single crop succession, and this is all lettuce. And this is somebody who said, I'm going to need 100 lettuces over the next 4 months. So I will plant 100 lettuces today. And of course, a lot of them bolt. So what we do, that a lot of people probably here are already familiar with, is we plant a little bit at a time. And you can do that directly in the soil. But if you do it in cells, then you have this overlap where you can be growing something in your soil space while also growing the babies elsewhere. And so you end up just planting little crops. So you have some babies, but you have some that are almost ready that you planted a month before. And you have some that are very much ready and some that you've already harvested maybe in the back. So that you have these levels, these degrees of readiness, and you never have too much. So this is what succession planting is like. So you're planting maybe every month the lettuce seeds, and you're growing them on. And by the time these start to come out, you get to put new babies in. So you're harvesting every year. So that's something that every month, I should say. A lot of people are already familiar with that. Let's look at some successions that are different crops. So here's a bed that was in lettuce because it was very warm in March, because it's a warm bed, gets a lot of sun. But now there's a lot of sun, and the lettuce is going to get harvested, and it's going to be quite warm. So this person grew basil starts. If this person had seeded this in the ground, but when the ground was warm enough for basil, that's very late. Basil likes to grow in very warm soil, and we just don't have it. So this person grew these probably out of doors. Let's say if you have lights, definitely go ahead and use them. But if you don't, you can do it out of doors with a little warming cloche over the top, and we'll talk about those. So these might be 5 weeks old by the time they put them in. And that's 5 weeks at this. You don't have to wait for them to grow in the soil and then cry when they get mowed down because slugs love basil starts. So I find that to be very satisfying. Anybody want to contradict me? I'll fight you. No.
My biggest problem is the end of the season. So it's starting things in the summer for fall planting. It's just too hot anywhere to start your cool fall crops, even in cells outside. I mean, I've tried them even in the garage. I mean, trying to find the coolest place possible to get
Yeah.
those fall crops started. So the succession seems to work in the spring by starting things ahead like the basil, but it's on the other side of the season that I have the most trouble is starting fall and winter things in cells to replace the tomatoes and the peppers when they come out to have fall and
Right.
winter crops. I just can't get them to start. It's too warm.
Yes. Are you thinking of spinach?
Spinach, I even have problems with lettuce. I mean, if I try to plant lettuce starts in cells at the end of the summer for fall cropping, they just bolt before they even become actual proper plants.
Yeah. So germination is one thing about lettuce that's hard, but you're saying even when they germinate, they end up bolting. So it sounds like you have a lot of sun. Have you ever, I mean, you said you have a lot of sun and you have a lot of sand in your soil. Do you, does your lettuce get like wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry? The
Yeah,
soil?
sometimes. But like I said, I try to start them in cells, say in July, to be able to
Yeah.
plant them out once the heat crops come out in order for the
Yeah.
fall harvest. And even when I plant them in cells, I just can't get them in a location that's cool enough
Yeah. Yeah.
that they work. They just
Yeah.
overheat.
So you're talking not once they go in the ground, but even in the cells, it's a
Yeah.
problem for you.
The same thing with
Yeah, that's
cabbage, same
true.
thing with spinach. Just pretty much any of the fall and winter things I want to try to get into the ground for that succession planting. Just I
Yeah.
can't get them started in the summer. It's just too warm.
Are you using heat tolerant varieties? Like there are lettuces that are more heat tolerant.
Yeah, and maybe I need to be better at figuring out different varieties. I mean, I try to focus, or I have tried to focus on like the winter density lettuce and things like that that I know will stay in the ground through the winter
Yeah.
to give us the winter harvest. But like I said, starting them has just been a real big challenge.
So in cells, I like spinach if I can get it started. Is one of those plants that really doesn't want to germinate over 70 degrees.
Hmm.
And even if it does, it can be really challenging. And lettuce will not, there are lettuces that don't like to germinate over 72. But the not growing is interesting. Do they get morning sun? Do you have a place where they can get sun in the morning and then like 5 hours of morning sun and then shade? Do you do that?
I've
You
tried
probably
to move
do.
them around. Again, it starts to become really labor intensive. One year I had them all on a
Yeah.
cart and I would run them around the yard, to the different shady spots on the
Mhm,
cart to try to keep them from getting too much sun. But
mhm.
it's the heat, I think. I mean, they
The
just get so
temperature.
warm. But maybe we'll have a cooler year this year and I'll have luck. So I end up buying starts, at the nursery in
Yeah,
late August, of lettuces and spinaches and things. And then I can succession plant and grow those through the fall and winter. But
for
starting them
sure.
on my
Yeah.
own, I might need an ice bath or something.
Possibly. My spinach spends quite a bit of time on my tile kitchen floor.
Maybe that's what I need to do.
Just, yeah, for me, it's a problem of germination, right? And then do you ever use shade cloth or like put
Yeah.
them behind your things that provide just a lot of shade? So you're saying your property is like 80 degrees a lot of the time?
It's bad, yeah. I mean, it can get really hot in the summer and it just won't germinate those. Even if the seeds do germinate, then they bolt almost immediately. So,
Yeah, yeah, spinach will do that for sure too.
yeah.
Right.
Anyway, that's
That
been
is
my
a
challenge.
hot property. Yeah. Yes. I would try to find a friend who's got a cool property who's really good at it, and then I'd swap them and I'd do the tomatoes and give them the starts.
Now, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
That sounds I do that with some friends of mine who, we have different conditions. So yeah, but those can get tricky to get started. Yeah. And yeah, okay. You can of course plant, you can do intercropping as well. These are pumpkins that are going to need a huge amount of root space because they're really big. These aren't mine, but some of them need a lot of root space. It's not just that they're growing all over the soil. But you can definitely not waste this by interplanting other quick crops around them. And then as the pumpkins grow out, they're going to shade these, which will be much appreciated by the greens because when it's 90 or whatever, they're going to want some shade. Often that stops the growth of the greens, but then you can harvest those out and even remove them or, yeah. And so the pumpkins then will take over. So you could do this, and this is direct seeding kind of succession, but it's not considered tight successions because you're not using seedlings. So you could do this instead. So what happens here is you can see we've done arugula and then we wait for it to come out. And you might say, well, I could just plant the seed like in between the arugula, but this is dense and I want to use a lot of my bed space for my vegetables. And there often isn't room or there's root competition when I seed next to them. But not always. I'm talking, I'm so much on the subject of tight successions. You'll think that I never I never have space in my garden or I never do direct seeding. I'm just talking about this particular technique right now. So here we got 3 crops out of it. And in September, this person is harvesting some basil and is hoping, that September is going to be warm to the end so they can get more basil because by the time the ground was warm enough for the basil, which likes heat, it was pretty late. And so by the time their basil comes in and is harvestable, it's too late to plant crops for winter. In fact, yeah, probably even if you did get plants in cells for winter growth, you'd want them in the ground by sometime in August, the actual cells. So this is fine. This is great that this person did it, but let's see what happens with if you do it in cells. So you can see that they started with arugula and then they get to start the lettuce a month or even a month and a half before. And then that lettuce starts to mature and they get to start their basil when they realize the lettuce is going to come out and that bed's getting warm, going to be too warm for the lettuce maybe. So they've started their basil even before that lettuce harvest starts. And they grow that basil on. Look, that basil previously was being seeded in August. Now it's being seeded in June, end of June or beginning of June. And even if it's cool, because this person can put a cloche over this, they can keep it a little bit warmer. And then that basil matures this big in July, but then you have more basil harvest time. And you can freeze pesto by the cupful, by the quart. And you can get starts or start your own if you have a cool enough shady spot and a cool spot for them to germinate. You can get these starts started or look for friends who can do it or look for farm stands where they're selling these starts and you can have a fall planting so that you can eat all winter through the whole winter from your garden. John, are our comments okay?
John had
Well, we
a
take a look.
comment about produce preparation, the washing, and then the containers and boxes, the stuff that they want the food banks, I would assume.
Oh, from the food banks. You know what a field wash is, John? You just clean it up as much as you can. Sorry?
Okay. Yeah, because most of the things that I'm going to be doing, cabbage, you just peel that stuff back. Squash is always pretty clean. It comes out, but I'm thinking more of daikon radishes and onions for me, pulling them out of the ground. How much do I have to prepare that, or do the food banks prepare it? In the past, I've just donated tomatoes and things like that that are relatively
Mhm.
clean, put them in a box,
Do you have
and
a
they're happy
hose
to
where
take
you
them.
could, oh, sorry. Do you have a hose where you could hold the daikon by the hair in bunches and just
Oh yeah,
squirt
yeah,
off most
yeah.
of it? So that's a field wash. I bet it would be fine. Is
Okay. And then cardboard
that okay?
boxes, so we don't have to, it's always repurposing cardboard boxes. So that's, I assume, that's what I've done in the past. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I
okay.
brought them. I brought them in a basket the other day. And they just take them out and put them in ours. They take them out in a bin because they know the tare weight of the bin, and
Mm-hmm.
then they can weigh that and they pack whatever you came with.
Okay.
Sometimes I brought them in by the armloads when we did Peaceful Morning Farm donations. So these are all things that you can grow in. Dee Pajak last time was talking about, plastic is she's really wanting to reduce plastic. So there are things made of cow manure here. This is made of, I think it's fur. There are things made of coir, all kinds of stuff. You do have to buy new ones of these every time. And when you plant these, you want the entire pot under the ground, because if you leave the paper above ground, it can wick the moisture out from the roots of the plant up into the air. So often people tear or cut away the rim all the way down to the soil level or past the soil level before they plant the pot. And you plant the pot because the roots of the plant can grow into these papery manure pots. But there are lots of different ways. There are things called soil blockers where you don't have to buy pots at all. People repurpose things. If you grow a patch like this, you're going to have to take them out. You grow them until they have 2 leaves. Then you grab them by the leaves and you take a pencil and you sort of tease them out gently, and you have to put them into separate little pots. So there are lots of different ways to grow them. A lot of people use these cells, and you can often find these cells like on someone's driveway where they're giving things away. So you don't have to make the world make more plastic for you. Where do we grow them? Well, in the windows, often there isn't enough light. It looks super bright to us, but the wavelengths that get through the slightly tinted window that we can't even tell that it's tinted are not what the plants need. So we often get really gangly starts. If this happens, and it's this tall with just its first 2 leaves teetering on the top, I would probably start that over, or at least I would start some more to see if I can get them shorter. Sometimes a tomato or pepper or something will stretch out as it grows. And you can, of course, bury part of a tomato's stem and it'll grow more roots. But you can't, when it's this extreme, I would say I might want to try to solve that problem. So some people use lights, and some people grow them in morning outdoor sun. And then if it gets hot, then they'll bring them in. Or if it's a heat loving plant, they'll just leave them out. If it's chilly, you can put a cloche over. And I don't mean anything fancy. This is a broken drawer. It's not my photo, but it's a drawer from a Rubbermaid chest, looks like. I like that it's vented here, because you don't want to have it getting steamy in there. It does retain some heat. I would not put the starts on the ground or anywhere near the ground. I also wouldn't put the starts on upturned pots or pallets or stones, because slugs can live in there. They just come up and eat your goods. If you do have things in cells for quite a while, you will either take a little bit of organic fertilizer before you fill the cells. You can put a little bit of soil and then a little whisper sprinkle of organic granular fertilizer, and then fill them up the rest of the way and put the seeds in. Or you can fertilize with a weak liquid fertilizer that you've diluted to 1/4 to 1/2 the normal strength. And that really helps. That really helps for me not to have seedlings that get really hungry and they start to feel mortal. So they bolt easier. They bolt early if they're hungry. Robin, you're probably feeding your starts, right? Yeah. Okay. I vote for the friend idea. If you do have lights, of course, you can do tomatoes and peppers in mid-March. I do this presentation at different times of the year, so sometimes that's relevant. But you could make a note, maybe look into lights so you can grow your own tomatoes and peppers if you want. So what grows well in cells? Okay, direct seed these guys. These are rooty things. They don't do so well in cells. We just put them straight in the ground. Also peas. Peas like to grow straight in the ground. Have I grown them in pots? Sure thing. If I have a real bad slug problem, I'll grow them in cells and I'll set them out. But they don't like their roots to be disturbed. And they like to develop a relationship with the bacteria in the soil. So if you can grow them straight in the soil, that's great. These are not for now. The second one, the tomatoes and peppers and things like that. Sometimes we use a heat map. In spring, you can grow these either directly in the ground or you can grow them in cells generally. And once things warm up quite a bit, above 70, your cells that you're growing them in will be warm as well. Even if the soil temperature is not quite up, the cells warm up more easily. And you can also have some kind of little cloche over them so that they warm up. And often you'll see a list, that says, dang, don't do beans, corn, cukes, beets, or peas. But I do them, and I know farmers who do them because you can outrun the slugs this way. If I do direct seed of beans or corn, I often have them mowed down. If I do direct seeds of cukes, by the time the soil is really warm at my house, I could have been growing cukes for 3 weeks in my house, 2 weeks, and have them a little bit further ahead so I can get them earlier. Brassicas are happy in cells, but they usually like our early season temperatures. As you know, Robin, brassicas don't love temps above 68, and they actually get sick. So they like the cooler nights, which is great because I've started a lot of brassicas. Now at my house, it's different because it's not so exposed. So I can give them like filtered sun, 60, 65 during the day, and our nights are not retaining much heat. So they do often get down to 50, 55 at night. Who wants to say something? You want to say something that you put in the chat out loud? Now's the time.
Hey, you want to see my light setup, Carol?
Yeah, I do. You gonna step away for a sec?
No, hang on just a second. I've got to move a little bit here. Give me just a second.
Okay. We could have a virtual tour of absolutely everybody's lights sometime if you have lights. You have lights, Robin? I'm pretending like you're not even there. I'm only addressing your way.
Yeah, we have quite a big light setup, 4-tier rolling unit that I move from room to room in the house to grow peppers and tomatoes and everything to start them early in the season and then move them out as soon as I can.
That's great.
Yeah,
You might
it
have to
makes
stop sharing your. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
You
I'm
might have to
sorry.
stop
Yeah, I
sharing
gotta
your screen.
stop sharing. And I gotta be quiet long enough for you to do it.
There, so. Oh, and I've got to change my background. Give me just a second. Yeah. See how we can see this, if we can see it.
There it is. It's glowing at us. What do you have under there now?
All right.
Lots of stuff.
Oh, sorry, it's the lights.
It's fine. It's okay.
Tomatoes, squash. That's the parsley. A mouse got into it the other night and tore through that
No.
thing. And then
Oh, you
there's some more
too?
lights. I don't know how
Was
well
it
you
in
can
your
see this.
cells? Ben, was it the cells?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There.
That,
There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. She packs them
what is it
in.
about mice and parsley?
And then this one's like 4 different types of peppers in here because I
Oh,
really
that's
like
great.
these. And let's see if I can turn this back on. I guess I can. Oh, and then I like
Woo.
this roller thing that Barrett does. Have you ever done that with like packing material?
No, I wondered what those were. Oh, so
So what
she
she
sort of
does is she
makes
takes packing
origamis a pot, right?
she takes packing material, she lays down potting soil in it, rolls the whole thing up and ties it in like one of those sort of swirl rolls. And
Mm-hmm.
and then at that point she puts seeds in at the top. And it's whatever she wants. So she's got one with marigolds, and then when you want to put the marigolds, you can just break a little piece off and put it anywhere you want to.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
everything is
cool.
once you get it going, it's all watered from underneath. It just soaks it up like a sponge.
Cool.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question? Do you have ventilation by your growth? I mean, our system looks almost exactly like that, but I wonder if I've got enough air movement going through when I've got the lights so low close to the plants when
Right.
they initially start. So do you put a fan on them or put them by an
Yeah,
open
we
window
our
or
air
anything?
moves. We have an old house, so the air moves rather freely through it. I do have a couple of fans that I turn on just to keep the air circulating. We have a ceiling fan that goes all year round. I just switch the direction of it depending on the season. So yeah, there's some air movement. And I'll just tell you, I grow weed, and when I grow weed, I put the fan directly on those things. It strengthens the stems. It does all kinds of wonderful stuff for them. So
Yeah, I think that's the next thing we're going to have to add to our grow system is I think we need some ventilation by our tiers look a lot like yours. In fact, it's probably the same kind of general setup, but we don't have enough air movement, I think. So I often will get fungal stuff or dampening off or, those kinds
Mhm.
of problems with my seedlings. So I think I need more air movement.
we're also very careful not to let any standing water. So we pull everything out of the racks, water them on the counters, the things that can go outside. We're rounding some stuff off too, as well, a few hours outside. Um, that seems to work pretty well. But what we noticed is we had it in our guest room last year, and whenever you walked in, it smelled like that sort of earthy, really almost funky sort of thing. Whereas in the dining room, the ceilings are higher. There's enough air circulation. You don't really notice it as much. It's you can barely tell it. Yeah, yeah. It's good fun, and
Yeah,
we don't have to
thanks.
have
That
anybody
was
over for
helpful.
dinner.
Yay. Yay for the lights people to tell us how it's done. Um, do you have, John, I know yours are LEDs, right?
Yeah, I just went and bought
Yeah,
shop lights at Home Depot. There are 20. I think I got them on sale. They're like 22.50 a
LED shop
piece.
lights.
Mine
Yeah.
are just under
You can read a lot.
4,000 K.
Okay.
Yeah, which you said 4,000 is probably the best, or you need at least
Did
4,000.
I?
I think at
At
one point
least
when we
four,
talked
maybe
about
five.
lights, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Okay.
I like your system better though. It was more economical for you.
Oh, my old leftover shop lights from the thrift store. Yeah. It's fine. I mean, I like them all. I like all the systems. Are yours also LED, Robin?
I popped for the actual, grow lights, so they're tube lights that
Yeah.
are, I bought from Gardener Supply. So they were expensive. I'm worried about what
Yeah.
happens when they burn out, but that hasn't happened yet, knock on wood, so I haven't had to replace them. But they're just tubes that fit into a, an overhead structure, but they are, they're certified multi-spectrum grow lights or whatever. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure they do much more than when we had our just LED setup before. I haven't seen any miraculous difference in grow time or anything,
Oh,
but
that's interesting. I want that data because it is confusing. There's so many options out there for lights if you do use them.
Mine are LED, multi-LED, so it's got a pretty good spectrum to it, and I don't really notice a whole lot of difference between growing outside and growing inside, but they do tend to react a little bit when I take them outside. And then as far as ventilation, mine is in the laundry room, and so laundry room has an exterior door, and I'm going in and out of that all the time. So the air
Mm.
changes a lot there. I have been thinking about the fans for the same reason, kind of strengthen the plants a little bit. But
Mm.
I do try to get everything under the lights as soon as they sprout so they don't get leggy. So I try to prevent that. So I try to get,
Right.
the first
Yeah.
leaves right off the ground as close as I can. So anyway, it's
Even
been
with the
working for me.
LEDs, because they say you don't have to have them as close. Like with fluorescence, you're supposed to do it like half an inch away, almost
Yeah,
touching.
yeah, mine because I'm doing it on the counter space type of thing. I
Yeah.
have the LEDs kind of in a fixed position, so mostly
Yeah.
I keep them at the
That's what
same
I do.
level. Although I sometimes I put 2x4s under the rather than just the lights, I adjust the
Yeah.
rate, the height of the and I use the commercial cookie sheets for trays. The big full size commercial cookie sheets is what I use. And then that's
Yeah.
why I just put some, and then I water through the bottom too, like you were talking about. I use solo cups and drill out the holes in the bottom. So I have quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit of soil there. So I can kind of, if I
Yeah,
don't,
that's a lot.
you got quite a bit of soil so they can stand quite a bit. And then I've been lately building what I call net pens outside to move stuff into, and then I can cover them. Certainly to keep all the cabbage flies and all that type of stuff off them or whatever. But
Wow.
anyway, it's every year I learn more from you, and I get more stuff done. So it's working pretty well.
I learned more from you all. I appreciate it. I appreciate all your contributions. And I see, Laura, that Liam has joined you. Hi. Hi to both of you.
Hello.
Let's see. Hi. Um, Here I am after a sweaty day in the garden with lots and lots of peppers. Oh, I'm not sharing. Gotta share. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about cloches, and you can tell me what you use for cloches. So a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't grow red peppers here," but you can grow red peppers. Um, and if you protect them, things like peppers and eggplants, when it's a little bit cooler, when you put them in, then they can grow more successfully. You might want to consider doing that, keeping them a little bit warmer in the early season. And then if it's really hot, then you would take the covers off. And then when it gets to September, maybe you wish they didn't get soaking wet and rot. And so you can put the covers back on. And also some winter food like escarole in the garden it's very tolerant of cold temps, but it's not tolerant of water. So a cover over the top can be really helpful. So I am showing these because my cover that I propose is made of plastic, partly. So I understand that there are other ways to go. Um, this would need something clear on the top. It's not mobile, and it's probably not safety glass. So I wouldn't have it if I had children or pets that like to bolt about because it can be deadly, and that might be lead paint. So that's kind of a don't example, but we can make things out of windows. I could see something like this made out of shower doors, just because I've been talking to people about plastic lately. So I want to acknowledge that although these aren't mobile, they could protect your plants. Here's a lot of leftover stuff that you can use. These are old refrigerator doors in a fridge that completely broke. I would tilt them up if in fact, that's what I did right after I took the picture. broken Rubbermaid box that literally has a big hole in one side of it. It came from the garbage at Bayhay. That's a broken off umbrella. And this is a very shoddily, sloppily made tunnel. And it's really sweaty inside, which it shouldn't be. But they can be quite tidy. So I'm going to show you something about that. Oh, all the lumps in this picture, repeat after me. Everyone's seen this dozens of times. Every lump in here is food. Some of it's not protected at all, but the long things are tunnels. That's a Rubbermaid box. And there's just tons of food out there. And it's fine. You just go kick the snow off and start eating. So you can find lots of tunnels, which are modeled after these. They're kind of stationary because you have to anchor the pipes, and it might be black plastic pipes, it might be metal pipes. You have to get a special pipe bender to do this. And then you put the plastic over the top, and often you pin the ends down with like a tent peg, like it's tied onto a tent peg so it doesn't blow away. I'm going to suggest a little bit of a modification to that. This is remesh. This is a 6-inch grid. Remesh stands for reinforcing mesh. You know, like rebar reinforces concrete, it's reinforcing bars. Remesh is wire mesh that's 6x6. If you ask for remesh at a construction store and they give you something that costs $50, $60, they're selling you a cattle panel. This bends more easily. A cattle panel's really hard to bend. It's about $20 at the most. But it's not as soft as fencing. So if you make a hoop, a tunnel out of this, you can pick it up and toss it off to the side. And some fencing, a lot of fencing will kind of deform slightly when you do that. Like, so you end up with the fencing being kind of like this. This stuff doesn't do it. It is malleable enough so that you can stand on the end and sort of turn it into a hoop that isn't spring loaded. It's actually structurally that shape, but it also does not deform if you hit it or you twist it or something. So I think it's great. I can pick a 7-foot long one of these up and pull it with one hand against my fist, or turn it on its end, or toss it across the room with one hand. So it's really not a mess. Like for me, I did it because when I want to get into this tunnel and weed, I have to unclip or untie or whatever the plastic. And then I push it up and the water falls off of it. And then I'm trying to weed in there and it's dripping on me, or I have to take it all the way off. With this, I pick it up, even with the plastic over the top, which isn't on here right now. I pick it up with one hand, toss it off to the side, or hinge it backward so it's upside down behind the bed. And I do all the work and then I just put it back. So this is me making a short one. I do a hospital corner, so you can see it's tucked under. It's very tidy. That happens to be paracord, but you can use anything that doesn't stretch. And then this is a bungee, and it's just anchored over the little nubs of metal that stick out of the bottom here. In the winter, when I don't want it to blow away, I can push the plastic up a little bit and put a big brick or one of those big glacial till rocks, one on that end and one on that end on each corner. And when I want to go outside and pick those carrots in the winter, or whatever it is, it's not carrots, but chard, I just tap it with my toe hard and the rock goes through, and then I just hinge it back, and then it's out of the way. I can toss it off to the side. You can also build them low. This is 4.5 feet of rebar this way. It's across a 3-something wide bed. This one happens to be 7 feet long. And I've formed it into this. This is not bird netting. This is called all-purpose netting. When I bought it, it was called deer netting. This is a 3/4 inch mesh. Bird netting is hateful, and it tears if it's old, and it springs all over the place, and it blows away in the wind when I'm trying to work with it. And I don't love it. This stuff is a little bit more rigid, and I can make it very tidy and tight. And I can do a little hospital corner, and then I can zip tie it or wire it or whatever I want along there. A piece of wood or bamboo goes across here. and the mesh is zip tied or tied onto it, and then the ends are attached. This end should be attached to the wire mesh, the wire grid, because that'll keep the squirrels from going underneath it. And these are very easy to pick up. So these are strawberries come growing underneath. Let's see. And then I was suggesting things that aren't plastic. So you could instead cover it with hardware cloth if you want to. I'd use 3/4 inch because then you can grab it with your fingers. I wouldn't go smaller because then you can't pick it up very easily. And that's a big one. This was very shoddily made. I just did it really spontaneously. So it's a little messy on the ends, but I didn't even zip tie it. I just clamped it on with binder clips because the deer were eating my chard. But those can protect from pests, squirrels and birds and things. I have never had a bird in one of these. Whereas with bird netting, I feel like it'll get little gaps and things so that they can get in there. If you put plastic over the top, you want to vent the ends or the sides on sunny days. And many days I go out there for the mid-morning coffee break or whatever, and I see it's hot today. I'm going to take this tunnel off. And in fact, I'm going to walk it over and put it in the shade because I don't need it to be exposed to the sun unnecessarily when the plants don't even need it. Yeah. So there are lots of places to get the remesh. This is on the resource page. I would just say twice I have said remesh and I was directed to the cattle panels. They are very different things. The person probably should have known that. And I don't want you to buy a cattle panel when you want remesh. Also, the plastic you can get, if you're going to do the plastic, I would go to Johnny's Seeds if you're going to invest, because they have UV resistant. It's warranted not to fall apart in the sun for 4 years. I have some that are 5 years old. They're fine. I'm concerned about us putting plastic on the garden and then having it particulate into the garden. But so that's why I have this. If you'd like to try it without having to buy a big roll, let me know. I say this every year. Nobody's ever taken me up on it. So you could be the first. I'll give you a 13 or 14 foot long piece. You tell me like how long a tunnel you're going to make, and I'll cost share it. You know what? I'm going to give the proceeds to Helpline House. So I'll figure out how much it'll cost, but it won't cost much for a sheet of plastic. So you can just email me and ask me if you want to try that. So somebody said, how come it has to be UV resistant? Why do the plants need not to get UV? That's not it. It's that it won't particulate. Anybody want to say something about these things? If it won't work for you, that's fine. It's just an option. Do you have other ways? John McInnes, you used fencing, but yours don't come off, right?
What do you mean mine don't come off? I use the welded wire, which is pretty much the same thing. Welded wire. It's a light duty fencing, comes in a roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much the same thing as you use, except it's galvanized. It deforms a little bit. I would agree with you on that, but not too bad. But no, I lift mine off. So they weigh a couple pounds.
Well, maybe you're also not throwing it across the garden year after year. I have some that are 24 years old, and I've been throwing them, disrespectfully. So maybe that's the problem for me.
Yeah, I do use cattle panel for climbing, green beans and cucumbers, things like that. So I do use those, but I cut them to 8-foot lengths or buy them in 8-foot lengths, and I use that. But no, and it pretty much looks the same thing as what you're doing there. So
that's good.
The other comment I had was on the bird netting. I totally agree with somebody gave me bird netting one time. I said, well, I'll try it. The birds get their little claws or talons, whatever, stuck in those things. So I had to save a couple birds after that. I got rid of this stuff. It's really, really fine stuff. They get their claws stuck in it. So they land on it and then they can't get away sometimes. So yeah, it's nasty. You get the heavier stuff, deer netting type stuff like you were talking about, and it works much better.
Yeah, my cursing it was not because it hurts birds, which I hear it does. But because I hate working with the lighter stuff, if I have to be really precise, like wrapping it over a
Oh,
wire frame, I
I
do
totally
have
agree.
some that's
Totally agree.
draped over some beds. I don't want to say, it's awful. I just don't like working with it. But yeah, so you even had, I've heard a lot of people say they've had some bad stuff happen with bird netting. I do have some bird netting. If you ever, you'll see it. If you ever happen to see it here, it hangs down over something, and I haven't had a bird ever get stuck in that. So if I'm not dissing you if you own bird netting, but John McInnes and I find it to be uh
Yeah, the deer netting is about the
relaxing.
same. The deer netting is about the same grid, so why not use? It's a little heavier, a
Yeah.
little more expensive, but then it lasts longer too. Or at least you don't end up getting frustrated and throw it in the garbage type of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't tangle so much in mine. Yeah, okay. Well, good to know. Oh, I'm going to remind you, um, John, can you check for our final comments? But I'm just going to remind you that this is coming up May 17th. We have this tour. If you'd like to learn more about it, maybe you just want to come and not do the work party, you can do that. It's very interesting to see. And we're going to work on filling up the farm because right now it looks much emptier than this. Let me
One
see if I have
question
anything
from
else.
Laura.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
What do you say, Laura?
Hi, I was just
I can,
wondering how many people direct sow pumpkins and zucchini and how many um, start them otherwise.
give us your input. What do you do, Laura? What do you do with your sugar pies?
Turning it back on me. Okay. Well, I'm still prepping my garden bed for the pumpkins.
Oh, me too. Mine's not ready at all.
Yep. Nope. I think, yep. So, but I have been thinking maybe I should be starting them in my little soil blocks to get a little jump start. But it's getting warm enough out there that maybe I just direct sow them and then cover them up and protect them.
I love starting them in the soil blocks because I'm excited to start the plants. I'm not so excited about getting that crud out of the bed where they're going to live, right?
Right.
So I'm behind on those chores, but I can start the plants anyway, and then it's this happy motivator for me to get the thing done. What do you say, Robin? You were nodding.
I start all that. I mean, all my winter squash, all my pumpkins, everything. I mean, I started them 2 weeks ago, I guess, in little soil pots. I mean, I just use little leftover pots that I've got around from other things and
Yeah.
just start them in those and let them get as big as they possibly can in there before I put them out in their final home. I found they just do better. The the trick is not to mess with the roots. So to take actually let them get almost root bound in the pot so that when you take them out, you're just gently placing them in the hole that you've created for them. Because I've in years past messed with the roots and then I've had failures, crop failures. But if I can keep the
Yes.
roots good, then they can go in there perfectly.
I feel
My
like there was a slide. Oh, go ahead, John McInnes.
my experience to that, or my answer to that question is it depends whether you have slugs or not. So I've had complete rows of pumpkins and squash just mowed down by slugs. So I do them in inside in containers, but it's nice to do them outside, and I've done it outside before in places where I didn't have years ago when I didn't have slugs, but where I'm at now I have slugs, so I do them inside. And once a plant gets to a certain size, then the slugs can't damage them.
Yes, I like that. Is there such thing as or not when it comes to slugs in the Northwest? You said it depends if you have slugs or not. Who is that? A friend of mine tends to put her cucurbits in quite early, her cucumbery things, and I wait, and I plant them a lot later into cells, and I grow them in cells. And mine, in terms of yield, even though I start them later, they get a better start. And the soil, it's the right temp because I'm growing them where they're supposed to be and not in the cool soil. And then they take off. Laura, what if you do like a side by side comparison for us?
Okie dokie. I can do that.
It's decided. Laura says, I'm going to say whatever makes her not make me do this. Um, yeah, and yeah, cucumbers don't like to know that they've been transplanted. So, Robin, you mean by almost root bound is not that they're wound up and really root bound, but they are holding on to all of the soil in the pot, right? Because you don't want to pull them out and then have the roots like lose the soil and the roots are all disturbed. You want to like sneak
Exactly.
them in.
Yeah. I plant them
Don't
soon
tell
enough
them.
so that they get they take up most of the soil in the pot. Then I just sort of lifting them out of the pot and putting them right into the warm soil. And then they just take off because the soil's already
Yeah.
warm. It's all ready for them. In years in the past, when I've direct sowed like that, they just haven't taken off. Even later in the season, when the soil does warm up, they're just slower than everything else. It's somehow that
Yes, I've noticed that. Yeah.
bit. I don't know why, but that's at least what works for me.
I
You do
usually,
have to know. Oh, sorry. Go, John.
sorry, I usually tease the very bottom, exactly what Robin's saying,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
tease the very bottom just to get the roots kind of, hey, I'm in more soil now.
Mm-hmm. I do that with a lot of things. I don't do that with my cukes, but maybe I should try. But with a lot of squash, like if they're really big, those things grow like baby whales. So you have to be kind of ready to at least prep the beds when you put them in the seed in the pot, right? Because like 10 days later, they're scratching at the screen door. 2 weeks later, maybe. So in addition to the farm tour, John has set us up for a visit to a real person's garden. So we love the real gardens, but by real growers. And this one has all of these features. And it's a sweet garden. John, I realized I had gone there in like 2012 once. So it's nice. And we get to see like those little ideas and how people do things that is so fun to see when we visit each other's gardens. So watch for the sign up notice for that. And oh, did I ask you this already? Yes. So I put it at the end as well. So I'm just reminding you that when you donate to Helpline, if you consider yourself having been inspired by this project, and you feel like you're participating in this extra project for Helpline, it would be great if you would say Grow for Helpline. Have them recorded as Grow for Helpline. I'm going to keep going until I see that I'm done here. Like I've gotten on. Oh, yep, we're done. We're done.